While watching Springsteen deliver Me From Nowhere, I wanted to walk out multiple times. I was so bored with this movie. Every scene with Springsteen's romantic interest could have been cut. There is a literal line of dialogue in this movie that shows how cliched the writing is.
I do know who you are. Well, that makes one of us.
And then there's another scene where Bruce Springsteen, we flash back to his childhood and he sees a mansion on a hill. It then cuts back to Bruce Springsteen as an adult writing Mansion on the Hill. That's how bad and stupid this writing is. And it really does exemplify why I disliked Deliver Me From Nowhere, which we'll get into today. And this is the core of my frustration with this new movie from Scott Cooper, is this film follows one of the most influential and important musicians in American history going through something deeply personal and traumatizing and writing his most vulnerable album in Nebraska. And by the end, I still felt like I knew nothing new about Springsteen. It didn't broaden my understanding of Springsteen. It didn't help me appreciate his music and this album. Nothing changed for me in my relationship with Springsteen. And I want to get this out of the way. I am pro-therapy, which this movie is very clear pro-therapy. I do think men need to be able to share and be vulnerable with each other. So if this movie touched you in any way and it makes you want to reach out for help, I will not try to take that away from you. I think that is something beautiful. I think that is something brave. And I do think that is the core message of this movie, which again, you can be in agreement with the message of a film and not like what the actual film product is. I don't think this is really a movie. This feels like more of a commercial to go to therapy and an artist encouraging you to do that. Again, a positive thing, but that doesn't have any narrative tension or need to be a movie. That was my hang up with this. Specifically, where I found myself in conflict with the movie is this is a movie that is saying a lot of these things that I just spoke about, but it's not showing it. I did not get to know the character of Bruce Springsteen. He's very closed off in this movie. He is a man of little words. He just appears sad the entire runtime. I thought this movie was so boring and such a dud. And everything and everywhere around him keeps this level of tone that Bruce is in this movie. It is just such a depressing, sad movie. And it's not even an interesting one at that. There is no real conflict in this movie. And I think one of the reasons is Scott Cooper's script and direction. Everything feels so surface level. It is supposed to be a film that is a mood and reflection that led to the creation of this album in Nebraska. But we don't have much to grasp onto. Deliver Me From Nowhere doesn't have any take on Bruce Springsteen. It really doesn't understand this character, this time period, what he's going through in his life, except that he is depressed. That's really the only thing this movie has a take on with Bruce. It doesn't elaborate on that particularly well. It doesn't speak on that very well because everything that is communicated about depression is very surface level. This movie is essentially people asking the question, what's going on with Bruce? And the response is, oh, he's sad. And they'll follow up, why? And then they'll say, well, because his dad was cruel and abused him. And that's it. There is a psychological intent on that. That is something that I think can be really well explored in a movie. The trauma of abuse, the living through that, and then trying to make music that reflects on that, that tries to be honest on that, that allows you to work through those conflicted feelings of your childhood. A lot of artists do it. A lot of films have shown artists doing that. And I think that's the intent of what this movie is trying to do. But what Delivered Me From Nowhere does is it shows me Bruce being sad. And then it shows me Bruce's dad, who is cruel. But these two ideas never seem to work together, which brings us to the album of Nebraska, which is the main focal point of this movie. This movie is about Bruce Springsteen basically trying to get out Nebraska and work through something. It is an album that wants you to believe that it is a purging of emotions for Bruce, that he just has to get out. He has to get this album out. Otherwise, he'll kind of just explode. He'll die. And we never really understand why. We don't understand why this specific album is the one that he has to get, except that we know in a historical context that this is his most personal album. We don't really get the ideas of what Nebraska is about, except that, again, it's apparently about depression, because that's what this movie is telling us. We don't understand the songwriting within each song. We see him research a few songs or a few news articles that help inspire these songs. But again, we never understand why. We never understand how this album is about his dad, which this movie is telling us that it's about his dad and him trying to work through it. It is just a movie that feels like three parts. Bruce going through depression, Bruce and his dad and the cruelty of that relationship and working through that, and then making Nebraska. None of these three ideas really feel connected with each other, even though I do think the film is trying to tell us these are connected. And I gotta be honest, one of the reasons this movie just doesn't work for me, and I know some people are going to be annoyed with the sentiment, it's Jeremy Allen White as the boss. You can chalk it up to bad writing, but for me, it was also just a dud of a performance. I don't think he is able to elevate any of the bad writing, which, to his credit, there is a lot of bad writing. I didn't understand his interpretation of Bruce. I didn't understand what he was going for. His performance of Bruce reminded me of this one Tim Robinson sketch. I kept thinking about it over and over again during the movie.
I just don't want to go home. What's waiting for me at home is really bad.
What's waiting for you at home?
I don't know. When I get home, there's something I'm worried about my life.
What is it?
I don't know.
Is there really something?
I don't know.
While watching Jeremy Allen White on screen, I could tell that he was trying to communicate to us Bruce is sad during this period. Then I would kind of have this follow-up question of why. And then he'd be like, well, something related to his father. And I'm like, okay, but can we dive more into that and really explain how Nebraska is him working through his feelings on his dad? Well, he's just sad. Like, that really just kind of kept coming back. The North Star of this movie is just like, depression, it takes over. And, like, obviously it does. I don't think this movie does a good job of showing that at all. This isn't a character. Bruce Springsteen is not a character in this movie. He also just doesn't hold the screen well. Like, and again, maybe you can chalk this up to bad writing and all that, but I also just don't see Jeremy Allen White being able to hold the screen on the big screen. Like, maybe he'll one day make the transition to movie star, but I just didn't find him able at all to elevate the material. You think of other music biopics, and despite their flaws, despite their cliches, usually there's a central performance that keeps the tension of the movie and understands what they are doing with it. I think of someone like Timothée Chalamet last year as Bob Dylan, a movie that I think is pretty good, but I think Chalamet is near excellent in. And I think that's because he has a clear take and understanding of Bob Dylan. But you look at Jamie Foxx and Ray, even a performance that I'm not particularly a big fan of, Rami Malek as Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody, he still has an understanding that fits for that movie, and I think he is able to extrapolate on that. I don't think Jeremy Allen White has that connection. I think they cast Jeremy Allen White because he's really good at doing the stoic, quiet male character that we've seen in such performances as the Iron Claw and we've seen in his hit TV show The Bear. But in this movie, it just feels like he's very lost and unsure of himself. It really does feel like that he is cosplaying Bruce Springsteen. There are a few moments where I think the film hits something with Jeremy Allen White, and it's specifically during the performance element. It's when White is able to more disappear into the role, and I think this was probably also true for Bruce Springsteen. When he's on stage, he can kind of disconnect with everything going on in his life, and this is a moment of him to just like express everything. We see that a few times in the film. Born to Run, which is in the first 5 minutes of this movie, you kind of see that magic. I felt it more in the scene of Jeremy Allen White when he's performing in the studio Born in the USA. Like, there's an excitement to that. There's an energy that felt like Bruce Springsteen. That's when I think he has the juice as an actor to carry this. Again, it still feels a little bit like cosplay. He is doing a very good singing impression of Springsteen. Like, you can see the performance there and the notes of a performance. And again, maybe it's just completely lost in the direction and script. I don't think he was able to elevate it that much. If you wanted to tell me James Mangold directed this movie and was able to get a better performance out of Jeremy Allen White, I wouldn't deny you that. But again, as a performance, he just doesn't hold the screen for me in this movie. I kind of thought Bruce Springsteen was maybe the least interesting performance in a Bruce Springsteen movie, which is not a good sign. Not all the performances are bad, though. I thought there were two compelling performances in this movie. One is given by Jeremy Strong, who plays Bruce's manager, and the other is, funny enough, played by Marc Maron, host of WTF with Marc Maron, the recently ended podcast. And let's just talk about Maron quick, because his role is so brief in this movie. The only reason I found this character interesting is because this is the only time the film has any sense of humor. This is the only chunk of the movie that I found particularly interesting, which is Maron plays this guy in a studio who is trying to figure out the sound that Bruce is talking about and bring it to life for Nebraska. It is the making of the sound of Nebraska, and that's the most interesting chunk of the movie. And I think Maron's good in it. I think he hits a few comedic lines. Again, he has like 5 lines of dialogue that, again, just kind of bring the movie to life for a few minutes, and this section of the movie feels special. Coincidentally, this is also the part of the movie that Bruce Springsteen is in the least of. But the other performance that I want to talk about, and it's just because he is so good, is Jeremy Strong, who really can make something out of nothing, which is what his performance is in this movie. He has nothing to work with in this character of John Landau, Bruce's manager and producer. He's given nothing to do. He is the manager who is there to support Bruce's vision the entire time. He is saddled with terrible lines of dialogue and vague motivation on who he is. We don't understand who Landau is. What makes Jeremy Strong work is every scene he has a heartbeat in. Like, you feel an emotional aspect to this character that really clicked for me. He is a character that is vulnerable. He is wearing his heart on his sleeve. What it says about him, I don't know. What the motivation of this character is, I really can't tell you. But I can tell you when Jeremy Strong is on screen, this movie has something working in its benefit. And again, that is just solely due to who Strong is as a performer, not a credit to the screenplay or direction. I haven't talked enough about Scott Cooper's direction or writing in this film. It is incompetent. It is neither fish nor fowl. And I think it's because he has no grasp of what he is trying to do with this movie. He is trying to avoid the stereotypes of a music biopic. And instead, he's trying to aspire to be something that feels more soulful of a meditation of artistry. An artist working through something and working through a trauma via their artistic endeavors. In essence, I would say that this movie is trying to be more of Inside Llewyn Davis or that Todd Haynes Bob Dylan movie, more than it is trying to be Bohemian Rhapsody, Walk the Line, cradle to grave movie. It is trying to capture a specific mood and time in Bruce Springsteen's life at a point that is maybe Springsteen's most challenging endeavor in making Nebraska. The issue that Scott Cooper has is, despite trying to avoid the cliches of the music biopic, he commits every sin, and every sin is apparent in this movie. This is a story about the rise and fall of Springsteen, and specifically the fall of him not being able to get through his depression. Like, that is the core tension of this movie. It is an over-reliance on imitation. The Jeremy Allen White performance is really indebted to Springsteen, and he is trying to do that instead of allow himself to be something of his own creation, or allow himself to kind of separate our public understanding of Bruce. It has a very cliched visual style, including flashbacks, which are shot in black and white. It's so cliched. It is so emotionally manipulative. And it kind of feels sanitized due to the involvement of the Bruce Springsteen estate. There's no way around that. Like, Springsteen had his involvement with his movie. He is kind of dictating what can and can't be allowed in this movie. It makes some elements of this movie horrific. The romantic subplot, for instance, is so poorly handled. And I think one of the reasons it's handled is because Bruce was probably a lot more worse to be around during this period. And this film shows him aloof and disconnected in this relationship with this woman, but never dives more into it. It's almost like it's afraid to show how bad of a boyfriend Bruce Springsteen would have been at this time while he's making Nebraska and he's consumed by his depression. I understand maybe not wanting to get into that, or that not being the core text of this movie. don't bring it up then. You don't have to talk about it in this movie. You could take out the romantic subplot of this movie, and it works just the same. In fact, it probably works a little bit better because every scene we cut to his romantic partner, it's bad. In fact, any scene that we cut to a woman in this movie is just straight up bad. And this is not me saying that, men shouldn't write women characters. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I am trying to say is maybe Scott Cooper shouldn't write women characters because he has no grasp on them. None of these characters are real. Their whole life is revolving around Bruce. It's such poor writing. It's such bad direction. It frankly pissed me off. And that's how I felt about this movie. I did not enjoy Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere. In fact, I would say point blank, this is a bad movie that I would not recommend. I don't even know if you're a diehard Springsteen fan, if this movie will work for you. I just think it's a complete mismanagement from top to bottom, and just another example of Scott Cooper just not being that guy as a director. I was going to give it 2 stars, and then I started doing this review, and I started disliking this movie more and more. The more I thought about it, the more I talked about it, the more I wrote this review, and now I'm like 1.5 out of 5 stars. Wasn't successful, would not recommend. But thank you so much for watching this channel. I hope you consider subscribing for more. I just had my review of A House of Dynamite, which is now streaming on Netflix. I also just did a review for Shelly Oaks. This same day, I saw Frankenstein and I saw Blue Moon. Today, I'll be seeing potentially Begonia, and I'll be seeing After the Hunt. All reviews that I plan on having out soon for you guys. So make sure you subscribe to this channel for more.